We are about to kick off from cradle to grave. I would love to intro these founders, but that's why we have exceptional moderators that we've invited to join us today for Meet the Fellows. Today for this session, we have Megh Gupta. So partner at Wittington Ventures, a Toronto-based venture capital firm that focuses on the future of healthcare, commerce, and food. As an operator and investor, he spent his career at the intersection of technology and investing. Recently, Megh was the global head of corporate strategy and development at Element AI. Prior to that, he was investor at Omer's Ventures. He's also an early member of Torstar Digital, the corporate venture and innovation arm for Torstar, where he acquired and incubated a portfolio of 10 plus digital businesses. I mean, Megh, I could keep going, but welcome.
Thanks.
How's it going?
Pleasure to be here. Going well. Pleasure to be here. It's been a great session so far.
Thanks for joining. We're excited for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Shall we kick things off?
Absolutely. The floor is yours.
All right. Okay, sounds good. So thanks everyone for joining this session, which features three of Canada's most exciting D2C businesses. We've got Lilia, Willful, and Callia. These companies' services literally span the cradle to grave life milestones, along with enabling the celebration of all other life moments in between. Each of Alyssa, Erin, and Catherine have built disruptive businesses that aim to shake up established industries and displace incumbents. So without further ado, let's jump into the opportunities and challenges that characterize each of their companies. So I see, are we waiting for one more? Yeah. Okay, as we go in here, so ladies, welcome. To start things off, actually, we're missing here? Missing Alyssa?
I think we can get started.
Okay, so let's start it here.
Yeah.
So anyways, to start things off, can the both of you at least introduce your company briefly and your core value proposition?
Go ahead, Erin, after you.
Thanks, Catherine. Hi, I'm Erin Burry. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Willful, and we're bringing the traditional paper-based process of estate planning online and really democratizing it and making it easy, affordable, and convenient to create wills and power of attorney documents online. So really our value prop is no one likes to think about death, but COVID has reminded us that the unexpected can happen anytime, and it's better to have your stuff together before you need it. So we're helping to provide an easy.
Erin, we think we lost your audio, but Catherine, you want to jump in?
For sure. So my name is Metrycki. I'm the founder of Callia. So we're disrupting floral with the best new experience sending flowers. So all online ordering, kind of an e-commerce enabled experience, but backed by a supply chain and some tech and logistics disruption to do things a little differently in this space.
Okay, sounds great. And it looks like it's just you and me for the
first
couple minutes, right?
The irony of I was the one who didn't have my audio working last time.
That's great. By process of elimination, this is a tribal council. Okay, so we're going to kick things off here and say in conversations before, we were chatting with all three of you, and there's only one left, but it's apparent that your business is built for consumers by consumers. And so can you tell us a little bit about what it is that makes your business unique, and why can't the incumbents seem to do it themselves?
Yeah, for sure. And I think for us in floral, we talk about disrupting. And I mean, everyone here is disrupting. But one of the things that's interesting about this space is that it's been a long time, mom and pop, old school industry backed by kind of the syndicates and some of the bricks and mortar business space. And so our background, actually, most of our leadership team comes from a consumer packaged goods background. And so we're taking the concept of how do you take a commodity product, which is flowers, and apply more of a brand management lens to it to create this next generation brand. And so how do you actually build, the consumer experience of all the way through from what are customers looking for from a SKU selection perspective down through to, this really sticky brand that makes them come back. But then how can you take things like tech and logistics and apply those to an industry that's really traditionally been mom and pop and the syndicates that have struggled to innovate? And so taking that lens of, brand management, consumer packaged goods, how do you look at a commodity product and do it differently has been a really good angle to an industry that traditionally has been florists by florists by florists for generations. And so we're just trying to shake things up a bit. And I think a different perspective is doing that.
That's awesome. Erin, I know you got voted off the island, but now that you're back, maybe you can give your perspective on sort of your business is a business built for consumers by consumers.
Yeah, sorry about that, but it wouldn't be a virtual event without virtual difficulties. So yeah, I mean, you would guess whenever I meet people and say I'm the CEO of an estate planning startup, they naturally say, oh, are you an estate lawyer? And I always say, no, actually, my husband and I co-founded the company together because we were consumers who lost a loved one and saw how inefficient the process was to wrap up someone's life when they hadn't necessarily put together fulsome end-of-life plans or shared those details with loved ones. And we really came at the problem, I think, as consumers who were using other platforms like Wealthsimple and Airbnb, and we really appreciated user experience and content and education. So we always say, the reason Willful has been successful is because we're not estate lawyers. We didn't come at it trying to fit an existing process into a mold. We actually came at it from the perspective of our customers. What type of user experience would they want? What do they know about estate planning and not know? And the reason that I think a startup like ours has to do this instead of an incumbent is, frankly, a lot of them would just never take on the risk of launching an estate planning startup. The banks are very reticent, very eager to partner with us, but very reticent to build it themselves. So the big law firms won't do it. The banks won't do it for the same reason. They just don't have the same appetite for innovation and risk. So luckily that opened the door for us.
I love it. Alyssa, welcome. We missed you. So with that, I'm gonna queue you up. I'm gonna queue you up for our second question for the panel, which is really around, each of the businesses for you ladies is built around life milestones and occasions. And so as a D2C brand, how do you make people think of your business in that particular moment or situation? And, here I'm assuming a solid marketing strategy is a must, but what else?
Well, the thing with our business that maybe is counterintuitive is fertility, and the idea of when and if to have kids comes up every day. Usually when it comes up is over dinner with girlfriends or friends or family having kids. Every new date is a time that you're thinking about, when will I have kids? And so, yeah, it's classic. So yeah, it actually comes up, it ends up coming up in the everyday moments. And so what we found is, like, how can we make those conversations an opportunity to have women feel celebrated for the decision of having kids later, or figuring out what their options are versus what's historically been driven as true, which is, not wanting to have kids now, and definitely as something that means there's something wrong with you or is something to be frowned upon, rather making women feel really good for going off the beaten path and doing their own thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Does that make sense? Is that a good ansser?
I like
the other
answer.
question better. I had a better answer for that one.
Did you? Yeah, sorry. I kind of shift things up on you. Eh?
That's okay.
So Catherine, I'm actually really interested in your response to this answer too, because flowers is a business that traditionally guys like myself know nothing about, and I'm gonna Google the local flower shop if I'm smart enough and try to plan a day before or an hour before if I can. But how have you thought about how to make Callia top of mind when folks are thinking about moments?
Yeah, your point is super valid. You have so few opportunities traditionally to convert customers or to get a sale in this category because it's all occasion based. So you get Valentine's Day, you get Mother's Day, and then like a couple birthdays, couple anniversaries. And unless someone dies, and excuse my callousness, you're not really finding another reason to send. And so for us, it's really important to be top of mind. And you talk about marketing strategy, of course, we've got that. But then there's really two things that we try and do. And so the first is we started to really invest in, customer relationship management, but in context of occasion-based business, which is very different than trying to get you to order more skip the dishes. If you don't have an occasion, you don't have an occasion. So we're trying to track behavior based on occasions and do, some predictive modeling around, if you sent for a birthday this year and an anniversary and whatever, then you might also want to send then, and make sure that we're prompting that behavior in advance. So we're investing a lot in that as kind of the first part of that. So making sure we're there for the occasions before they've even thought of the occasion. But the second piece of it is then trying to also do demand creation creation. I mean, I can tell you, my marketing team can tell you every possible day of, celebrate your dog and the teacher and the cousin and, people whose names start with M day, like all those things, and trying to make sure that we have those as incremental frequency, and subscriptions and other things to do that too. But when we think about making sure we're top of mind, a category that traditionally has a really low purchase frequency, it's A, getting ahead of that occasion before they're even thinking to send, and B, making sure that we've got those other reasons where they can send flowers when they typically wouldn't.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I guess, it sounds like what it's coming down to is expand the market itself, right? Versus just thinking about stealing existing market share for those occasions for flowers.
And that's part of why, that's part of why Callia exists too. When Alyssa talks about being there when people haven't thought about it, that's one of the, motivators of Callia from the beginning. How can you make sending flowers something that you do on a regular basis, not just a couple of years? How can it be easier, more consistent, better priced, more reliable? And so that's part of our mission as well.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a ton of sense. So, this next question I'm going to ask is a typical investor question that I'm sure you're getting tired of hearing, but I'm going to ask it anyways, which is, can you build a big enough D2C business in Canada? And, Erin, I'm going to sort of lob this one over to you first, but would really like to better understand that, all these businesses are great, but as investors start to look, we always think, hey, what's the market size? Is Canada big enough to sustain it? So would love to hear your respective takes on this. Erin, we'll start with you.
Good idea to start with me before my mic cuts out again and I refresh my Google Chrome for the 12th time. I think it's a great question, Megh, because investors don't love us. A lot of investors don't love us because we're direct to consumer. A lot of B2B investors in Canada and the US. We are a one-time transactional business today, although that will change in future. And we're Canada only. We're in 8 provinces right now. And frankly, we like being Canada only right now. That's not to say that we don't have expansion plans, but there's a lot of venture-backed competition in the US, and we're actually looking at different markets like South America or Europe as our first expansion plans. But it's really hard to sell people on investing in a business that's Canada only because it's seen as this small market, especially in the context of the behemoth next door that's 10 times the population. The way I really look at it is similar to Wealthsimple, which is, they actually just pulled out of the US because of the tight competition. They're focusing on Canada, and instead of trying to sell one product to you, they're trying to own a variety of products in your wallet, and they're expanding horizontally. And that's really what we see as our focus and how we sell a big business just in Canada. We start with the will, but then Megh, you have to come back to update that will. You're going to go through life changes. You're going to need to do other funeral and burial pre-planning, and you're going to have family members that pass away, and you're going to need a brand to navigate that. So that's really how we sell that story of you can build a big business in Canada. And we don't want to go to the US or elsewhere just because investors want it. We want to go there because that's a strategic decision for our business.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And an interesting take on, being proud to just be Canadian only for now. I like that. Alyssa, as you just popped a snack into your mouth, I'm lobbing this question over to you.
Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed right now. I thought when I signed on, you just made a cute little joke about you missed me. And I was like, what? And then I realized this actually started at 1:20 and not 1:30. And I was like, okay, I've really fucked this up. And now I've sworn on the panel. So here we are.
We've got the most lively panel. I actually don't mind it. I'm loving this. I'm owning it. It's fantastic.
Okay, answer your question. So when I originally started Lilia, we were focused on Canada only. And we thought, there's definitely enough people here where we can build a massive company. And what ended up happening for us was in the fertility space, Canada is just so behind the US when it comes to healthcare and a consumerized healthcare experience. And so what we found was, especially the fertility clinics in New York, for example, were so much further ahead in terms of marketing. They would actually call you if you called and left a message. They would send you an email follow-up, things like this. And so what we found is when we were originally building the company to solve the problem for women who want to explore their fertility options in egg freezing in Toronto, in Canada, we just were behind in terms of building best practices, such that when we were building in Toronto and then we went and tried to expand it to New York, like it was like a cute little, chuckle, we're already far past that. And so you still serve Toronto, but we had to expand where we were thinking about and focus on those big metropolitan cities in the US where the technology and the experience is further along, and it's more catered to consumers, so that we were building ahead of the trend and that we weren't just like following behind, kind of picking up some of the crumbs, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess a follow-up to that for you would be, now that you're in both places, how do you think about growth, right? Are you sort of split 50-50 between Canada and the US, or are you over-indexing on one area versus the other?
So we're really focused on growing in New York because it's the largest egg freezing market. It's an international destination for egg freezing. Folks from Asia will often come and freeze their eggs there. But what's been really cool is, I think maybe because we started in Toronto and we had such a wide reach really quickly, our word of mouth is so strong in Toronto and Canada. Like almost 100% of our customers come from referrals in Toronto. And so we're delighted to serve them in that way. And it's been really advantageous, obviously, for that to be our main growth channel. And I hope that we can end up doing that in each of the cities that we land in.
Yeah, I hope so too. Catherine, I'm gonna now throw it over to you and your thoughts on building a D2C business Canada.
It's interesting. So we've always been Canadian historically, and certainly there's a lot of opportunity for upside in Canada. We've also started looking at vertical and how some integration can continue to build growth for the company. But at the same time, you eventually run out of cities. And our model is based on having warehouses in a number of geographically distributed cities, particularly when it's really hot or really cold. And with the opening of Montreal at the end of the summer, we'll basically have hit every major city in Canada. And so at some point, if we want to achieve the growth milestones that we do, we have to start to look to other cities. And there's a lot of cities like Toronto, Edmonton, Calgary, Montreal in the US, very hot or very cold, where we can take some significant share. And so that's part of our growth strategy. But talking about network effect, Alyssa, and how important that viral kind of growth has been, it'll be interesting to see how that translates for Callia, because the network effect will not be nearly as strong in the US as it has been in Canada. And so that growth will be interesting to see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting too, I think, for you as you think about even marketing, what kind of different marketing strategies, if any, will you need to employ with the US, even though, it's a market that's down south. It's also a different, every place has its own cultural nuances, right? Or how people sort of think about things. So that'll be interesting to see as well. I'm going to transition to the next question, which, topic du jour, which is around COVID-19. And, as we've seen over the past year, this pandemic has either generated headwinds or tailwinds for respectively for every industry. So in light of that, would be curious to know, how has COVID-19 impacted each of your businesses? So Alyssa, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, so at first it had a pretty heavy impact in that fertility clinics shut down. So like you really couldn't do much of anything. And then we've seen a lift insofar as people have had, a lot of time to think and kind of reassess our priorities. And they've thought about, when do they want kids, if they want them, and they've just wanted more time. A lot of people are expressing this feeling of like a year was kind of taken from them, like they lost a year. And, during the pandemic, our ovaries continued to age, is the unfortunate truth. And so what we're seeing over the last few months is a real increase in folks wanting to do egg securing, because one, they're like, I don't want to get out of this pandemic and have a kid right away. I want to go enjoy my life. Like I want to go travel. I want to go, and do whatever. We're also finding, people are dating was really hard during the pandemic, and so people started doing that dating math. If I want to have kids by the time I'm 35 is a number many people think about, working backwards, I need to have had the right person like yesterday. And so we're finding a lot more people are just wanting to buy time and to do a lot of the things that they didn't get to do in the last year. And there's been this, what I think will be a very permanent transition to telemedicine. And so people have a higher expectation of how to engage with their doctors and to get answers remotely versus like needing to walk into a fertility clinic, like sign these manual papers, with a wet pen, and they want better answers sooner and more conveniently.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that about healthcare, right? Because the one thing that's been true is COVID-19 has proved to be sort of this catalyst or iPhone type moment for healthcare, right? And it's had pervasive impact in the different pockets of healthcare. So it's interesting to see those trends pop up for fertility as well. Erin, while we have you, I'm going to ask your take on how COVID-19 has impacted the business.
Yeah. So, for us, it was a really unique situation where as soon as COVID hit, we saw a massive spike in traffic and sales because, again, creating a will, estate planning is something that people typically tend to put to the bottom of the to-do list. There's not always a sense of urgency. No one tells you the date that you're going to die unless you found a really great psychic. So it doesn't seem like something that has a really good, a hard deadline. So COVID actually served to be that deadline for people where they were thinking, oh my goodness, I could actually die tomorrow. And I've been putting this off for 10 years. So the challenge with that is our values as a company are all about empowerment and empathy. They're not about fear and anxiety. So we weren't able to go market to this demand that we could see on our website. And we had to figure out ways to add value. So for us, that was things like giving away free wills to healthcare workers. We've given away over 4,000 so far, and printing and shipping.
That's
I know
right.
she was going to say they were printing and shipping people wills because they needed the wet signature, which is very cool.
Yes, absolutely. So, Catherine, we're gonna shift over to you, and talk to us about has a pandemic impacted if people think about shipping flowers or occasions or volume for that matter.
For sure. And we should do this as pitch karaoke next time and have to fill in the answers for each other. It'd be way more fun. We were one of the fortunate categories to have a nice tailwind from COVID where people were sending flowers instead of being able to go for dinner or out in person or whatever else. So that was nice in terms of getting a bit of benefit to the industry as a whole. But we've also seen, though, when Alyssa talks about the shift to telehealth, we've seen that the shift to purchasing online from a number of different categories, people who are traditionally more reluctant, but now buying everything online, has impacted the floral industry as well. And we've been really well positioned for that. So that's been nice to see. The one challenge that we've seen that I think we didn't anticipate, and I think e-commerce across the board is facing this, is that the expectations now from consumers of the experience that they get in one industry are now expected across every other industry. And, Mother's Day just finished for us. And the number of customers that came to us and said, well, Amazon lets me do it like this. And therefore, you as Canadian Startup X are expected to do the same, has been really interesting. So as much as you've seen this huge influx of people coming into the category and willing to make purchases online that they haven't in the past, at the same time, you've seen the bar significantly raised because whatever one industry is doing, now every player online is expected to do. So we're struggling to make sure that we stay ahead of the curve, or at least keep up when it comes to expectations for shopping online.
And that's how my business was affected by COVID.
Yes, I love it. That is fantastic. And with that, we're a wrap for our session. Just combing through to see if there's any questions popping up in the chat, but it doesn't look like right now they are.
Are people cheering for my answers to make it all the way through?
Oh, 100%.
Love
it's
it.
just
Okay.
I think we've just been the most lively session, so folks are just left speechless. Is kind of what I'm taking from this.
Alyssa's snacking. I'm cutting out. Catherine's the only professional here. And you, Megh.
You forgot that I missed half the session. So yeah.
It's been great. This has been great, ladies. Thanks for the time, and it's been a pleasure getting to dig deeper into each of your respective businesses. So this has been awesome, and thanks for folks for tuning in. And I guess we'll see everyone else around during the course of today.
Thanks for moderating, Megh.
Thanks, Megh.
Thanks,
See you later.
Bye for now.